Is Italy in trouble? The Italian economy, known for its rich heritage, is facing a daunting challenge. With a declining birth rate in Italy adding to its woes, today we will delve into the heart of Italy's economic crisis. More than 24% of Italy's population is over 65 years old, and this number is increasing. Even Italy's own health minister has expressed concern, calling Italy a dying country. But what is causing this decline? The answer lies in two simple words: fertility rates. These rates refer to the average number of babies each woman has. In Italy, the fertility rate is one of the lowest in the world, standing at 1.24 births per woman. Here's a tidbit: to maintain a stable population, any country would need a fertility rate of about 2.1 or higher. With Italy's fertility rate at 1.24, its population is on shaky ground. Italy has experienced fewer births than deaths for several years, slowly chipping away at its total population. In 2022, the country recorded a record low number of births, with less than 400,000 newborns in a population of approximately 59 million. This trend has been going on since 2015, and the situation is worsening. A population decline is inevitable when birth rates remain low, resulting in each new generation becoming smaller. While the situation might seem dire, things were different just 50 years ago. In the 1970s, Italy had a fertility rate of about 2.5, which meant the population was steadily growing. However, this rate wasn't high when you look at Italy's historical standards. A century earlier, Italy had a fertility rate of about 5, which was double the number of the 1970s. This doesn't mean that families had 5 children on average. One reason for the high historical rate was the sad reality of infant mortality. In the 1800s, around 40% of newborns didn't survive beyond the age of 5. Despite this, the population continued to grow. The concept of an aging population, like the one Italy faces now, simply didn't exist back then. But why has Italy seen such a drastic change in fertility rates over the last century? Well, several key factors have transformed the way Italians think about having children. First, let's go back in time. Italy used to be a mostly agricultural society. For most Italians, having children was essential. If you were a farmer, your kids would take care of you as you got older. There were no pensions or social security like we have today. Having children was like an insurance policy for your future. In those days, there were even financial incentives to have kids because child labor was common. Children worked in fields and workshops, helping their families earn money. This meant that having children was actually good for your wallet. Cultural and religious factors also played a significant role. Large families were highly respected, and being part of one held social status. The Catholic Church promoted having more children as a virtuous act, further encouraging larger families. However, the 20th century brought significant changes. Italy developed a comprehensive social safety net, providing health care, state pensions, and other benefits, reducing the financial necessity of having children. The abolition of child labor, while positive, removed the financial incentive for larger families. These days, raising a child is a luxury that very few people are able to afford. How? Let's break it down in numbers. On average, it costs about 175,000 euros to raise a child from birth to age 18 in Italy. That's around 10,000 euros per year for just one child. To put it in perspective, the average Italian makes about 30,000 euros a year. A cultural shift, particularly since the 1960s, has also played a role in declining fertility rates. Changing societal norms and movements like feminism have shifted the importance of starting a family. Traditional ideals of larger families have waned, not only in Italy but in Western countries in general. Religion, too, has become less important in Italy. While many Italians still identify as Catholic, church attendance has dropped significantly. In 2020, only about 20% of the population attended church, and most of them were elderly. This shift towards a less religious society has contributed to declining fertility rates. What has this changing population dynamic resulted in? As we mentioned earlier, Italy's economic situation is already challenging, and it's poised to get worse due to this crisis. With a debt-to-GDP ratio of approximately 150%, which is the second highest in the Eurozone, the European Commission has sounded the alarm about Italy's growing debt. debt. Italy has experienced 3 recessions in the last decade, emphasizing the economic hardships it faces. The future doesn't look much brighter, especially concerning the economy. Italy's demographic crisis is driving the nation toward an economic collapse. Italy is already among the weaker economies in Europe, barely showing any GDP growth over the past 2 decades. Italy's economic performance pales in comparison to countries like France and the United Kingdom. Italy's economy is underperforming, and extremely low birth rates are the heart of this problem. Low birth rates lead to a shrinking population, resulting in fewer consumers and workers for the economy. Fewer people buying and producing goods and services naturally leads to an economic downturn, and this population decline is expected to negatively affect Italy's long-term GDP growth, cementing its status as an underperformer in the years to come. In the short term, Italy is grappling with a different issue: extreme labor shortages. With a fertility rate of 1.2, each generation is shrinking by about 40%. This has a significant impact on the labor force, as the younger generation should be filling job positions. Companies in Italy are already concerned about labor shortages, which is becoming a ticking time bomb. The lack of people will likely force companies to leave the country, compounding the economic challenges. The problem extends beyond businesses. Due to a lack of people, the Italian government is struggling to initiate various projects. Important infrastructure projects that were supposed to be funded with 191.5 billion euros from the EU couldn't be started due to labor shortages. This inability to invest in its own economy will have long-term consequences for both companies and the government. Furthermore, Italy's schools are facing a significant decline in the number of students, expected to decline by 1 million within a decade due to these demographic trends. To make matters worse, Italy is facing a substantial brain drain. Approximately 50,000 young people leave the country annually to find better job opportunities abroad, where salaries are significantly higher, particularly in France, Germany, and Switzerland. Many of these departing individuals are degree holders, making the situation even worse. Shifting our focus to Italy's government financial situation, the nation is struggling to cope. Italy's government faces 2 major financial challenges. Firstly, it needs to fund essential services and infrastructure, relying on tax revenue from a shrinking workforce due to low birth rates. Increasing taxes could drive people and businesses away, harming the economy and living standards. Secondly, Italy's high government debt, well above EU guidelines, strains relations with the European Union. It can also lead to higher interest payments, burdening the economy. Government debt also poses an inflation risk. Pumping billions of euros into the economy increases the money supply, potentially leading to inflation, which erodes the currency's value and impacts living standards. So what can Italy do to address these challenges? First, the younger generation confronts a tough situation as they bear the burden of the demographic crisis. Their political influence is limited, but there are potential solutions. One critical step could be raising the retirement age, currently set at 67. While this move can reduce government welfare expenses and increase tax revenue, it's a sensitive issue, often met with resistance. France's experience with President Macron's retirement age increase led to mass protests and riots, highlighting the challenge of such reforms. Nevertheless, policymakers must weigh short-term concerns against long-term consequences. Failing to act may result in high taxes, mounting government debt, and inflation, all of which could trigger public unrest. This presents a complex and challenging political problem. Here's another interesting tidbit that makes Italy's situation more complex. There's a stark economic divide in Italy, with the southern regions like Calabria and Sicily facing more severe challenges than wealthier northern regions like Lombardy. Regional disparities are evident in GDP growth figures and fertility rates. This economic imbalance has fueled a significant migration trend, with many people leaving the south for the north in search of higher salaries. This internal migration has caused the population of southern cities to decline significantly, especially among the younger generation. If these north-south differences persist, it could strain national unity and exacerbate the demographic challenges. Immigration is another hot topic in Italian politics and is closely related to low fertility rates. Italy's population is shrinking, leading to workforce shortages. While immigrants can help fill this gap and potentially provide a solution, the issue is politically sensitive. The right-wing government, led by Prime Minister Maloney, Meloni opposes mass immigration due to concerns about changes in cultural identity and internal unrest. However, some on the left see immigration as a solution to the population decline. While Italy might be metaphorically dying because of its aging population, the recent conflict between Israel and Palestine has masses literally dying. But what led to this massive conflict? Click the video on screen now to find out.